everybody. Welcome to the Radical Candor Podcast. I'm Kim Scott, co-founder of Radical Candor and author of Radical Candor and Just Work.
I'm Jason Rosoff, CEO and co-founder of Radical Candor.
And I'm Amy Sandler, your host for the Radical Candor Podcast. And today we're talking about some terms that are really important, but are often used interchangeably and can often mean different things, the same things, all at the same time. These four words: praise, recognition, appreciation, gratitude.
Here we go, down the semantic rat hole. It's going to be fun. You're going to love it.
Kim, in fact, is lying down for this podcast because it's going to be such a ride. It's like she's strapped in. She's got the microphone on her diaphragm. And Kim, any other details you think are important to locate the listeners?
I just swam with a manta ray, and I'm full of awe. So I'm full of praise for nature.
Put in the ray and praise. Sorry, that was really bad.
That was good. I love it. All right, let's go.
All right. So first of all, I'm going to say something and let me know if I am misspeaking. At Radical Candor, we define praise as specific and sincere guidance that lets people know what they're doing well so that they can do more of that. Yes?
I think that's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. So far, so good. Jason, let me give you an example. Jason, when you came up with the idea to turn our digital comedy series, The Feedback Loop, into a self-paced e-course at the beginning of the pandemic, you opened a new revenue stream, which allowed people to begin learning Radical Candor on their own from the comforts of their own homes. So these are the kinds of innovative ideas that, by you doing this as CEO, encourage everyone on the team to think outside the box.
I'd say that's some pretty good praise.
Is that praise?
That was praise. That was praise. Maybe it was also, there was some recognition in there. And I would say I'm grateful because I love just being able to sign up for things and do them without asking permission or going through a bunch of hoops. So I love the self-paced thing.
If I may try to make a segue here, some people watch a lot of Mad Men. And in what many people cite as the best episode of Mad Men ever, which I have to confess, that's on my postponement list. So I cannot say with authority, but in this episode, Peggy tries to let her boss, Dawn, know that she's unhappy about not receiving recognition or appreciation for ideas. In particular, an idea that she came up with that Dawn, her boss, won an award for. So I don't know, Kim, Jason, do you want to act this out, or is that too big a request for you all?
Should we watch the clip first?
Oh, well.
Well, that's a scenario. So let's pretend. Let's just do it. Let's just go with it.
All right.
You gave me 20 ideas, and I picked out one of them, and that was the kernel that became the commercial.
But you got the Clio Award.
It's your job. I give you money. You give me the ideas.
And you never say thank you.
That's what the money's for.
Oh, that was good. Scene. Kim, did you like being Don Draper? I think you really enjoyed it.
I have a weakness for obnoxious aggression. There's part of me, I have gotten over it. But I mean, I married the nicest man in the world. But for years, I dated assholes because I have a little bit of a weakness for obnoxious aggression. I find it amusing.
It can be. I think in the context of the show, it is... he's a very complicated character. In this particular instance, it's like a pretty straightforward, he's just being a jerk.
So what do you think about this idea of I give you money, you give me ideas, and the money is the way to say thank you?
That's obviously a terrible understanding of what management is all about. But it's also a common understanding of what management is all about. I mean, that was my first misunderstanding of management. When I had my very first management job and I was going to hire those Russian diamond cutters, I thought it was going to be easy and therefore boring because I thought all I had to do was pay them. And when I realized that what they wanted was to know that I gave a damn, then that was the moment that management became interesting to me. And so I do not think that human beings are gumball machines. You put a penny in and you get a gumball out. That's what I think. Jason's going to add some nuance.
I think there's already some nuance in there, just in the like understanding what the relationship actually is. I do think that at some level, the relationship between a company and a person is transactional, but the relationship between a manager and a person should not be transactional.
Yes.
Because I don't want to live in a world in which there's like an overemphasis on the, like, someone can't leave that company because there's like this perceived sense of, you know, an over a developed sense of loyalty for the organization. I think like the humans that you work with, those relationships are valuable, but I don't think that the company is necessarily you're beholden to the company. I don't want to. No,
then it becomes a cult, or like Hotel California. You know, you
totally
can check in, but you can never check out.
Totally agree. So I think that there's some nuance there, but otherwise, I would say I 100% agree with you. I feel like one of the toughest parts about this is that even if you develop the awareness that it is not true, that human beings are not sort of coin operated, it's very hard sometimes as a manager, especially when you feel frustrated or you're kind of out of levers or you don't know what to do. You're like, but I pay this person. Shouldn't they like just do the work that I'm asking them to do? I think the reason why it's so pervasive is like, it's always there in the background that the fact that I pay you creates some obligation for you to do this, this work, regardless of how I treat you.
Jason, it's interesting because as you were talking, I was thinking of our conversations around quiet quitting and kind of this sense of what is bare minimum and what is, quote, the job, and then how the relationship fits into it. And Kim, you talked about how when you realized that these Russian diamond cutters wanted more than just money, that they wanted to, I'm interpreting what you said, care about them, but what we would say they wanted to feel appreciated. Do you think there was a sense of, was it about appreciation? Was it about understanding? Like, what is the difference between, in your mind, the care personally dimension of Radical Candor and appreciation? Or is it the same thing?
They're different. I mean, the diamond cutters wanted a lot more than praise. They wanted to know that I would get them out of the country if things went sideways. And so I think that the give a damn, there's a lot more to give a damn than appreciation and gratitude and praise. But I think that
can you tell more about that? What's in your head as you say that?
To know that someone has your back, that if you're in danger, you'll get them out of danger. Like that requires more than praise. That requires like figuring out a way around a bureaucracy, ways to get visas, ways to get planes in. Like there's a lot more to it. It requires a lot more. You need to take a lot more action. So in other words, care personally involves more than feedback. It also involves some actions, often. But I think that praise, recognition, appreciation, and gratitude are all big parts of care personally. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think it will be helpful to kind of delineate then. Jason, what was on your mind?
I was just going to say each of those things are an action that you can take to show that you care personally, but they are not the entirety of care personally.
Yes. I mean, there's moments when care personally is about like reaching out and grabbing somebody when they're about to get hit by a bus and pulling them out of the way.
Yeah. And it feels important to say that the way you frame that question risks perpetuating a misunderstanding of Radical Candor, which is that criticism can't be care personally. Like sometimes sometimes not praising someone, sometimes saying you're doing this thing in a way that is hurting you or hurting your work or hurting our relationship is the kindest, like the best way to show that you care about that person, because otherwise they're on the path to self-destruct. So not just like pulling them out of the way of a bus, which is an accident, but maybe they're doing something and the behavior is intentional, but they may not understand the impact of it. And we would say like that is an act of care personally also.
Because you give a damn, which is what Kim also was talking about.
That's why there's like the give a damn is a superset, and the praise, appreciation, gratitude, recognition, those are subset.
Yeah. And I think the relationship between each of these is very interesting. Reb Rebel, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, research manager for people analytics at the Wharton School, has said that recognition is the act of expressing appreciation or gratitude, making it more behavioral. So Kim, in Radical Candor, you talk about recognition as things like rewards, like bonuses, raises, opportunities. Can recognition, could it be verbal? Does it need to also have these accompanying ticket items like bonus, raises, opportunities? Or like, what is the relationship in your mind between praise and recognition?
What's going on for me, what's going through my mind here is a person who worked for me at Google who came up with the idea of creating programmable keypads. And this idea, once we bought those programmable keypads, saved 30% of the whole team's time. So it was like, it was a step function improvement and the whole team's efficiency. So how was I going to show recognition, praise, appreciation, gratitude? So saying thank you to her was a first step, but I wanted to get the whole team to feel gratitude towards her. And so in order to do that, the recognition, like somebody said, oh, we should give her like a $25 gift certificate to Starbucks. And I thought that kind of recognition would actually be counterproductive. she had just created career opportunities for everyone on the team because now they had 30% more time to work on projects that they found more interesting and to do less grunt work. And it was also really important to think about when I told the story, not saying merely you get a $25 gift certificate and not saying merely you saved Google, hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of employee time. And not saying oh, great, now we can cut 30% of the team because, that would have been counterproductive. So I think explaining what she did, like giving her praise and recognizing the impact that she had and figuring out how to do this in a way that was meaningful to her was really important. So what she really wanted was a promotion, and she got a promotion. So that was a form of recognition. It's really interesting. I haven't parsed these terms. I haven't sat down and written about this, so I'm like kind of talking off the cuff. But to me, praise is something you say. Recognition is something you do. Gratitude is kind of something you feel, and appreciation, I don't know what appreciation and gratitude feel more like feelings. Recognition feels like something tangible you do, and praise feels like something you say. But I don't know. What do you all think?
I mean, from my perspective, that's like relatively close to the way that I tend to think about it, because gratitude that you express to somebody else, you can speak it, you can give voice to gratitude or appreciation. But in some sense, like that is an act of recognition, right? Like something you do might also include saying things. So that's the only like fuzzy part for me. So praise in some ways, I think, has to be spoken or has to be written. There's language is required for praise because the whole idea is for us to develop a shared understanding that something good just happened. And I would like to encourage you to do more of that good thing. So from my perspective, if that's the definition of praise, then we have to language it because that's the only way. We can't mind melt. We don't have any other way to like actually come to that shared understanding. Recognition might be words, like it might be spoken, it might be written, but it also might be a series of actions, to your point, right? Like it might be giving someone a promotion, it might be giving someone a bonus, it might be giving someone a $25 gift card to Starbucks if that's an appropriate sized reward for the thing that just happened and they really love Starbucks, for example. Like that might count in a different situation, not the one that you described. I don't know if that makes it better or worse.
Mike Robbins wrote in Harvard Business Review, and we can put the link in the chat. In simple terms, recognition is about what people do. Appreciation is about who they are. And I thought that was interesting because, we are very clear with the praise, context, observation, result, next step. So Kim, to your programmable keypad, it's not, you're a genius, you're the most brilliant thing ever. It was more about specifically what this person did by creating the programmable keypad, and the sort of net results of it would be praise or recognition in that definition. Appreciation is more...
I'm not sure I agree with that about what they do and who they are. I mean, I feel like respect I hate to throw another term in. But to me, like, respect is kind of what we owe to well, there's two definitions of respect. One is I respect something you do, and that has to be earned. But the more important definition of respect is regard for another person's feelings, background, who they are. And I think that it's interesting that we use the same word, respect, for that someone earns because of what they do, and something we owe to another person because of who they are. I think maybe there's not just one word. We need context around the words, because it's so easy to conflate.
Yeah. I think the framing that you were talking about earlier, Kim, of like appreciation is something that we feel, gratitude is something that we feel, recognition is not something that we feel. Like I feel like those two, there's like a difference in those words, right? That seems valuable. Appreciation might not be exactly an emotion. It's also like it happens at the cognitive level, but I think recognition, in order for it to make any sense, like it has to go beyond us, right? It has to leave the realm of something that we feel,
it has to be out of my head and into the world in a way you notice. And same with praise.
Yep.
And Kim, I think, what you're pinpointing, I think is really important. And some of the research around appreciation, there was a worldwide study from Towers Watson where workers reported that appreciation is the most significant driver of engagement. But the article we'll put in the show notes from Dropbox was noting how people aren't really doing this. They are not sharing appreciation. And there was Tony Schwartz shared, we're so unaccustomed to sharing positive emotions, we don't feel comfortable doing so. Heartfelt appreciation is a muscle we've not spent much time building or felt encouraged to build. And I think what you're saying around heartfelt appreciation, around manta ray, acknowledging someone else's humanity, uniqueness is really important. And as you're sharing about appreciation, I'm curious about our definition of praise, which is about focusing on the good stuff. And because there is still that challenge of doing something more. And I wonder if appreciation is really just sort of in the moment appreciating something rather than any expectation of a future outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like if we go back to the origin story of Radical Candor, where the guy's like, I can tell you really love that dog, and that wasn't exactly praise, but it was appreciation. It was like connecting to the shared humanity, or I don't know, humanity, dog animate.
Dog animate.
The shared love of the dogs that we both felt as human beings. That was sort of appreciation. It wasn't exactly praise. It was just sort of connecting. And I think that also may be part of what appreciation is. So maybe I agree with Mike Robbins, who I really like. Mike Robbins launched my speaking career, by the way, by telling me that I could charge to speak. I had no idea until he told me.
Maybe do you want to share some appreciation or recognition?
I want to share some. Mike Robbins did something that is really important for people to do. He had some privilege that I didn't have because he was ahead of me in the speaking game, and he noticed that I was exhausted, and because I had done 3 talks that day. And he asked me, how much do you charge? And I said, charge? You can charge to speak? I had no idea. And he told me, and he shared exactly how much he charged. And he actually came over to my house and he explained the whole thing to me. So, and he did not charge me to do that. He just was sharing his privilege. So thank you, Mike Robbins. A little praise for Mike Robbins.
I think it's praise, appreciation, and gratitude, and also maybe is the act of sharing it on our podcast recognition.
Maybe I owe him some money.
How about a $25 gift certificate to Starbucks?
Mike, here's what I'm going to do, Mike, which is what Mike would want me to do. I'm going to pay it forward. And I have tried to do that, actually, for a lot of other writers. And share exactly what,
you sure have.
What I charge.
I think the idea of combining heartfelt and appreciation together is really like, it's an expression of emotion, right? Appreciation is an expression of a feeling. Like, it's the act of expressing the feeling that you have about somebody else, this positive feeling that you have about somebody else.
And the other thing, sorry, I keep interrupting you. I know you want to say something, Jason, but I'm going to forget it. I'm going to lose this one. And I think it's important. Which is that I think you were talking about it's emotional, but so often our emotions come from a belief that we have, actually, rather than like it often starts, emotion starts as cognition often, at least for me. And I think that that's part of why getting in the habit of being aware of the things that you're grateful for and giving them voice creates more. It's like a virtuous cycle of emotion and cognition, and not doing that can create a vicious cycle that you saw in the Mad Men Don and Peggy episode, where money recognition can be the extrinsic, is often thought of as an sort of tapping into extrinsic motivations. But it turns out that our intrinsic motivations, for most of us, are what actually unleash our ability to do our very best work. And if you replace intrinsic with extrinsic, you get the gumball machine, and the gumballs go stale. And so I think it's really important to be aware of the value of that intrinsic motivation and feeling gratitude and then expressing it, not just in terms of money, but in terms of human connection.
I just want to go back to why this matters. Praise and recognition boost engagement, productivity, and profitability, and reduce absenteeism. And the analysis from Gallup and WorkHuman stated, and I quote, "It celebrates individual work, it bonds teams together, and it connects personal achievement to organizational success." So I think it might be helpful as we close out, just what are your personal flavors of appreciation, recognition? Like, what helps you feel appreciated? Kim, if someone were to share some appreciation with you, what would feel meaningful for you?
I mean, I think the thing that motivates me more than anything else is probably the desire to connect with other people and to help them in ways that matter to them. So like I think some of the best praise I ever got was from a perfect stranger, where she came up to me and she said, "I became a manager recently, and it was really hard." And then her eyes filled with tears. I could tell it. I think I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. I like it. Her eyes filled with tears. And then she said, "And then I got your book, and I felt like I had an older sister with me." And she didn't have to come up to me and say that. And it was very meaningful to me that she did. And so that was all I needed that year. That was good. So you just know, I think the other thing to remember is that these random comments from people can be, and I don't mean to take anything away from Amy. You are very good with praise. Jason, you're very good with praise. Brandy, you're very good with praise. Nick, you're very good with praise. That's all been very meaningful. But sometimes it's like those things that somebody says to you that surprise you. And because they're a perfect stranger, it can have meaning. So I think just taking a moment to give voice to things you appreciate, and that the people do around you can really make their day in a way you can't imagine.
Far more important to me than any form of economic recognition, like going back to a time in which I was making very little money, like when I was waiting tables, and I was like, anyway, it wasn't good then. It's not good now. It's tough money to make.
It's a hard job.
I would say like the things that were most meaningful to me were the moments where someone stopped to tell me like that something that I had done had helped lift a burden that they were carrying, or someone was like, oh, I noticed that you cleaned my table, and I appreciate you doing that. I don't do those things because of that, but I think to me, it is meaningful to know that I am helping to lighten the load for other people in some way. And, like that, it also could have been like that waiter, like could have, because I started out as a busboy and a bar back, like the waiter could have just thrown me some extra tip. You know what I'm saying? Like they had a way to like recognize me, and maybe they did both, but like it comes across way different when someone says like, hey, I saw what you did and I'm telling you it made an impact on me. I think that kind of giving voice to it is the thing that I appreciate the most.
What about for you, Amy?
What I hear in both of your stories is people observing, and maybe they don't, quote, know us very well, but they can tap into something that we really value. And so for me, it's like when someone says something or does something to show like our own inner color purple, right? So like you're feeling seen. So Kim, that this person came to you and said like this older sister, it's like it evokes something in you that is quite under the surface, and yet like you feel seen for who you really want to be seen for. So for me, it's versions of, if it's in a workshop or if it's even in a Zoom, I just had a Zoom call where someone said like, this was the most fun Zoom call I've ever had, in preparing for a workshop. And so not everyone is going to love having, a fun Zoom call. Like there's a lot of people that might not be their cup of tea, and they'd rather spend 20 efficient minutes than 45 minutes of, and so I think for me, the parts that might be more off the beaten path or might be not necessarily always welcome, but that if somebody notices that and celebrates it, that is a deep, soulful appreciation for me.
Amazing. Yeah. Now we know what to do.
Yeah. So that it was not an efficient Zoom call, but it was the most fun Zoom call we've ever had. But speaking of efficiency, let's wrap it up.
I love efficiency. I also love the fun, Amy. And appreciate your fun. All right.
Just really quickly, because we live in the era of AI, I asked ChatGPT what the difference between these four terms were.
See, I was going to do that, but I didn't know where it was going to get that information from. So
if it gets it from Psychology Today, we're in trouble.
It doesn't use a single source, right? So large language models, the way that they do that is that they're connecting words together. So it's sort of finding, think of it as like, it's taking all of the mentions of praise and it's like coming up with a model. It predicts like what the words are to string together based on all the things that it knows about praise. It's not using a single source. So it's more like an amalgam, if you will.
Which is sort of what we're looking for in a way, because now I'm very curious.
So I'll read the first, I'll paste the whole thing, but I'll read the first and last paragraph. So praise, appreciation, gratitude, and recognition are all related to acknowledging and expressing positive feelings or feedback, but they differ in their nuances and contexts. Here's an overview. I will skip the overview. In summary, while praise focuses on approval and admiration for specific accomplishments, appreciation recognizes and values someone's overall contributions or qualities. Gratitude expresses thankfulness for the positive impact someone has had on one's life, and recognition involves acknowledging achievements or efforts in a more formal or public manner. Each of these expressions plays a role in affirming and motivating individuals in different contexts. I did a pretty friggin' good job.
And it goes with the appreciation, like acknowledging the person themselves rather than just their achievements, and often conveys a sense of gratitude and respect, which was the word that Kim brought in.
Interesting.
So now it's time for our Radical Candor checklist, tips you can use to start putting radical candor into practice.
Tip number 1, how long do you spend making sure you have all the facts right before you criticize somebody? When giving praise, it's important to praise what is, in fact, best and most important. Be specific about what's most relevant.
Tip number 2, focus on the good stuff. One way to do this is through recognition, allowing you to celebrate wins and encouraging praise between people. And you can make recognition a regular thing if your company uses Slack. You can create a #kudos channel. This is really good for remote teams. Or if you use Google Docs, Office 365, other collaborative editing software, you can easily create a shared document for shout-outs. You can also sign up for Bonusly to create a workplace recognition and rewards program. We'll put the link in the show notes.
Tip number 3, if you think money is the only form of appreciation people need for doing a great job, you're doing Radical Candor wrong. When you see something, say something. Let people know what they're doing well so they can do more of it, and where they can improve so they can do less of what's not working. But remember, focus on the good stuff.
For more tips, visit radicalcandor.com/resources. You can download our free learning guides, sign up for Radical Candor on Masterclass. Go ahead, get our lit video book. You can register for our workplace comedy series, The Feedback Loop, as praised on this very episode, and more. To see the show notes, radicalcandor.com/podcast. Speaking of praise, you can praise in public and private and criticize in private. So if you like what you hear, if you appreciate this podcast, if you feel deep gratitude for what we're doing, please go rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And we also would appreciate your criticism. Go ahead and email it to podcast@radicalcandor.com. It means that you care and you're listening and you want to help us improve. Bye for now.
Take care.
The Radical Candor podcast is based on the book Radical Candor, Be a Kick-Ass Boss Without Losing Your Humanity by Kim Scott. Episodes are written and produced by Brandy Neal with script editing by me, Amy Sandler. The show features Radical Candor co-founders Kim Scott and Jason Rosoff and is hosted by me, still Amy Sandler. Nick Carissimi is our audio engineer. The Radical Candor podcast theme music was composed by Cliff Goldmacher. Follow us on LinkedIn, Radical Candor the company, and visit us at radicalcandor.com.